We ready for callers?
Sure thing.
Serious stuff over for now. Steve in London.
Steve?
Hi there.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi there, guys. My name's Steve. I've been a Bible-believing Christian for 25 years now, and I found you on YouTube recently, and I just wanted to start by saying a couple of thank yous to your organisation, if that's okay. First of all, thanks for your politeness that you show to so many people who call in, and then when they're cornered on certain matters, they resort to emotionalism and condemnation. And I think it's great to see how calm you guys remain, and that you set an example on how we should debate.
Well, thank you, Steve.
No, that's good. And also, I think your show it should prompt us as Christians to research for ourselves the veracity of the Bible, to be prepared for intelligent people who don't believe in God to ask us how we can continue in our faith in the face of certain passages. So I just wanted to say thank you, guys, and for allowing me to come on. And I just got a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Okay.
I think just looking through the videos, it seems to me that both camps, if I can call it sort of like the Bible camp and the atheist camp, that we've both got our favourite hand grenades that we seem to lob at each other, albeit ever so politely. And I think from the
metaphorical hand grenades, after we just got done condemning violence of all kinds.
Yes. I know, but you know what I mean. I'm being metaphorical, guys. Sure. I think one of your favourite hand grenades you use in your show is science, and I've looked at loads of your shows, but I've yet to see an episode where, independent of your concerns about the Bible and Christianity, I've yet to see a show where you guys admit that science, and particularly evolutionary science, in which you place so much faith, does have glaring loopholes in certain places. And it would be good, to have a show where you look at some of the fallacies and flaws that have been exposed, and, to allow them to be aired. I've got an example, personal.
I want to pause for a minute and just point out that evolution is not considered atheist science. I mean, it is basically considered science. When you talk about things like the theory of relativity, or like quantum mechanics, or electrical engineering, none of those are considered atheist science. They're just basically an analysis of how it appears that the world around us actually works. And certain Christians wind up objecting to that because it seems to interfere with their God. But there are a whole lot of evolutionary scientists who remain believers.
Well, just to give an example that set me on the road on questioning evolution theory. I read a book in which a senior paleontologist in the UK Natural History Museum, his name's Colin Patterson, he admitted that he'd seen no evidence for gradual evolution in the fossil record. Now, to me as a thinker, to me as a thinker, here's a guy who handles bones day in, day out. I'm not the expert here, this guy is, and he's saying this, no evidence in the fossil record for gradual change, in effect, no evidence for evolution. So I thought to myself, wow, this is either a falsely quoted paragraph, or if it's not, then the consequences surely, have a bombshell effect, and my understanding...
So your judgment of an entire field of science is based on one offhand comment by one guy?
Have you
gone and looked at what the general state of the science is?
Guys, you see, this guy handles bones.
Right.
So do lots of paleontologists.
Is this guy the only paleontologist in the world?
No, but this is what I wanted to get at. It's just like, I'm not here to argue that evolution or creation. All I'm saying is that this is an aspect for me that I found that science. So I phoned this guy up, and he admitted, because I'm all about. I don't just look at something. I want to get to the bottom of it. Because so I phoned him up, and he admitted it. And he said, that quote can be attributed to me. But he said that if there hadn't been a Christian in the room with a tape recorder, I wouldn't have said what I'd said. And so, to me, that I'm not saying that proves creation. All I'm saying is
I feel like you're leaving a lot out of that conversation after that, because because what you've just done is quoted one sentence at us out of context. And I imagine that when he said, I wouldn't have said that if there was a guy with a tape recorder in the room, he might have then gone on to clarify exactly what he meant by that changes the original point.
All I'm saying is, guys,
you're not answering the question.
The other thing, that's just not the industry standard. I mean, you're talking about, let's just say that this is correct and he does believe exactly what you're describing, which I'm not sure that he does, but let's say that he does. There are, for example, people that are medical personnel who are anti-vaccine. Do you think that means that vaccines are not useful or that they're dangerous?
Well, no, guys, because all I'm trying to say is that I'm just trying to show that like, if there's a guy who handles bones day in, day out and then says these things, that to me is a kind of bombshell. And so that's
the problem is a guy, right? There are actual standards that are adhered to in these sciences, right, where they have these ideas of this is the prevailing theory. And just because, even if you had one person who didn't agree, for example, Michael Behe, right? There's a disclaimer at the university where he works basically saying, we don't subscribe to Behe's opinions on evolutionary microbiology because they're whack out like into left field. He's still a microbiologist and he makes these claims about evolution, but when you start looking at it, there are other people who are evolutionary scientists who have responded to these claims. And in fact, at the Dover trial, he got a hefty response to those claims. We had here in Austin the same question you're asking, or the claim that you're making. There was this, we have curriculum standards that were being put forward by Christian fundamentalists for our science classes because our school board was predominantly Christian fundamentalists and led by a guy named McElroy. And he wanted to have, or the board wanted to put in text into the curricula that said that we need to look at the strengths and weaknesses of evolution. And the response to that was that the textbook publishers came back and said our writers don't know what to do because they don't know what a weakness of evolution is. They don't know how to present that because they don't know what that would be. And so you have an industry where they can't even come up with how to meet a curriculum standard that says they have to describe a weakness of evolution because they're saying we don't know of any.
Well, I think that I'm sure you guys have heard of a scientist called Max Planck, and one of my favourite quotes that he had, and he's on record as quoting, which I could wear on a T-shirt, is that science progresses funeral by funeral. And so, like what's the rage today, tomorrow is out of fashion and superseded. And that's why I believe that, like, coming
so
from...
are you basically saying, I mean, I find it kind of weird that you're quoting this scientist originally as if he were an authority. And by the way, I have here a page on talkorigins.org where Patterson responds to this out-of-context quote and does explain what he meant. But I mean, I also find it weird that you seem to be making a general argument that science in general is not reliable and ought to be dismissed.
No, good guys, I mean,
Isn't that what you just said?
To be fair, science has loopholes, and so that's why I believe that, like, that we could be on two sides of the fence forever.
I can observe evolution.
There are two sides to the fence, and people just go back and forth. And I think finding out who God is about a personal. It's a for me, or I can speak for me and say that it was a personal point in my life.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back to the topic we started the show with. When you say that the idea of finding God is personal, then you're basically saying it's open to interpretation by every individual. And in the case of these three guys who just went and shot up an office in Paris, they really believed that what God wanted them to do the most was go and murder a bunch of heretics because that's what their religion said.
Yes.
That is one of the reasons why I don't find the personal investigation of something that doesn't appear to exist to be a reliable way of coming to conclusions about truth.
How can you say they're wrong?
Well, you see, because I think that what you're just demonstrating, guys, and again, and I'm glad that we're having this debate, is that there is that there are two camps, and so for me, it won't ever be about me being able to prove to you that God exists, because you could equally come up with a whole load of things to prove to me that he doesn't. And so all I'm saying is that I think where Jesus says in the Bible that he's become like a child, and in the Old Testament where it says in Jeremiah, when you seek me with all your heart, then I'll be found by you. All I'm saying is that I got to a point in my life when it was like I really needed to know.
What are you observing that you're calling God? Like when you're examining God to see what is God to you personally, like where is this God like existing that you get to examine it and tell whether or not your ideas about it are comparable to reality?
Okay. Well, guys, thanks for asking that question. All I'm saying is that I was in a room and I wanted to know, does this God exist? And I got down on my knees and I prayed, and I had a meeting. All I can say is I had a meeting with something that was supernatural outside of my physical understanding of anything that I knew in the world at that time, and it's changed my life and has led me, and this God has led me for the last 25 years, and I believe him to be the God of the Bible. But
I want to ask you something though. If you were in a room with one of the Paris terrorists, and they said, I had a personal encounter with God, and he told me to shoot all these people in this office, would you believe him?
Well, I would certainly be pretty scared if I was in that room.
I would too.
But I would say that's not the God I know, and the God that I've experienced for the last 25 years. That he would not call me to arms and go and shoot up innocent individuals.
So is there more than one God? Then? Well, is it like their God and your God?
Well, all I can say, and I'm going to speak for myself here, and I don't want to be a ducker and a diver. I believe that there's one God, and I believe he's the God of the Bible, and that's through revelation to me from a personal relationship. And
right, but maybe you can understand why we have a hard time accepting your personal revelation
when other people have different revelations.
And I mean, the difference, what you just told me a minute ago is that the way to have this kind of revelation is to throw out all skepticism and become like a child. Not only do I reject that, I think it's dangerous.
I would hope that you would pick up from my conversation with you that I am a rational and sceptical, and I like to know in which I'm placing my faith. And I came to faith also through a lot of seeking and testing things out, and no, that doesn't work out, that doesn't make sense, and jettisoning this, jettisoning that.
But you reject this from other people who say they've drawn a different conclusion using the same methodology.
Yeah, but I'm not.
If the method can't yield consistent results, there's something wrong with the method.
No, but I'm not judging them. All I'm saying is, I believe that that the God of the Bible met with me in his son Jesus, and he's changed.
If we're testing out a cure for leukemia, and we test it in Florida, and it cures 90% of the people with leukemia, and then we go test it in Australia, and it cures nobody, and then we test it in Japan, and it cures 10% of the people, and then when it's all over the map like that, the methods yielding different results, like wildly different and varied results, then the methodology is problematic. You have to look at your method. There's something wrong with it.
Yeah, but logic has its place. But I don't believe when it comes to...
This is just reality. This has nothing to do with logic. This is like if your methods yield entirely different results depending on who does it, where, and when, then the method is not reliable. That's just a reality.
Right.
That's not
But then, Tracie, all I'm doing is I'm calling you and telling you my experience of getting to the end of myself in my own life, and then...
But you reject that same experience for other people.
Well, I'm just telling you, I would never put my experience onto somebody else. I'm just telling you.
I understand that, but you should, because if your method is correct and it's reliable, then you should be able to put that onto other people. They should get the same results you did, or at least somewhat consistent.
I think what you're trying to say is that ultimately all opinions about reality are equally subjective, and I think that's just not true.
Well, no, I think that it's about whether we get to a place in our lives, because I am a self-determined person, and you guys are too, and you're intelligent, and you can tell when you're listening, guys. Listen, you've got good arguments, you've thought things through, and you know how to construct a good argument, and you deal with intellectual consistency. and that, your experience might be that a lot of Christians you've spoken to don't. I don't know, but I would hope that I have an intellectual consistency. But I think that you can't find God through intellect. It has to be, are you a broken person inside? Do you get to that point in your life where you need to know whether there is a real God who loves us outside of ourselves and has a plan for us and cares for us and loves us deeply?
Yeah.
Well, I want to know that for myself.
Yeah,
So when I got on my knees and asked that question, all I can say is, he met with me, and guys, you can't rob me of that through your logic.
You're right. I can't rob you of anything with logic if you're not, if you didn't come to your conclusions logically.
And if you're not going to be consistent and accept what other people come to using the same methodology.
Yeah, I'm not trying to insult your intelligence here. I'm not saying you're not a smart guy, but I'm saying that you seem to apply a double standard.
It only works for me.
Right, where I mean, skepticism is all fine and good, but if you want to come to God, you have to just trust this highly subjective personal experience, and that we have to believe you when you say that you talked to a supernatural entity.
Yeah.
And we don't.
And I can understand your skepticism there, but you see, I didn't come to God trusting Him because I didn't know whether He would be there. I believe it's about taking.
But you were already playing the game by their rules by asking the God to reveal itself, right? I mean, you were already buying into the sales pitch.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, because I think it's about taking that first step. Because I came to God.
You don't just ask Bigfoot if he exists. You go out and you discover it, right? Nobody would think that was reasonable to sit around asking if something exists. You go out and you take steps to discover it. The idea that you would accept the methodology of sit there and ask, and then whatever amorphous weirdness happens is your sign from God, and also the insult to all the people who spent years praying to God who got no response until they finally just gave up, and for those people that are often told, well, you just didn't have enough faith when they were, on their knees for years.
Listen, that revolts me, the faith movement and the prosperity movement and all that, that he died because he didn't pray hard enough, because it says in the Old Testament that, by your stripes you are healed, and so therefore, and then they die of cancer, all of that is horrible, and I hate all of that. And there's a lot that the church can be really shot down for. The child abuse, the ripping money off people, asking people to put their hands on the telly, and just,
But what is your response to the person who says, I was terrified of hell and I prayed for years for any sign or for God to reveal Himself, and I got nothing until I finally gave up? What is the response to somebody who used that method and it utterly failed them?
Well, I would say that response, if they're terrified of hell, that they've been going to a church that has been fire and brim and damnation.
What if they said they loved God and they wanted to find God, and they prayed?
Does God only reveal Himself to people who have been getting the right teachings?
Well, all I would say is, I would love to have a person
there is no hell.
At any time, I would love to sit down and listen to anybody's story. And if they wanted to know about my experience and about my personal with God, I would gladly tell them. I can't speak for other people. All I'm doing is on this show telling you how I came to a living relationship with Jesus.
The problem is there's as many of these stories as there are people with fails and different results and different conclusions about God. Completely, entirely, it would seem that if God was revealing Himself to people, they would have a consistent model of God. That it's like, oh yeah, He revealed Himself to me too. It's just like what yours is.
Yeah, but
why would it be so different?
Tracie, what you're doing now is, I believe, what you're doing is you're applying your logic and building a logic box.
No, I'm asking you about your logic, right? I'm asking about your logic. I'm saying that if you believe that God is revealing Himself to people when they do this, what is your explanation for why anybody would have a different result than you did?
What you mean? So, if a Muslim got down on his knees or her knees and prayed, Allah, are you there?
Sure.
Well, again, I can't explain that because I'm not in their mind. I'm only in my mind, walking my walk and living my life. But
it's the God, though, right? Revealing itself. It is the God revealing itself. It should be clear to the person's mind, no matter who they are. God would know how to
Yeah.
make himself clear to anyone's mind, wouldn't he?
Yes, I agree, but you see, there's another thing that I think is really important, and it's something that really blessed me. There's a book that I read, and what this book said was that we are to love
After
people.
you plug this book, I'm going to have to let you go.
No,
I'm not going to play
Yes,
the book. Yes, because we've been on
It's just a time thing. It's a time thing, not a
Yeah, we don't stick with one caller for the whole show.
You've been gracious. No. Listen, guys, you've been really gracious and listening to me. Thank you. I just want to say thank you for this time, and it's a great show, and I love the way you deal with people.
Thank you for calling.
Yeah, Steve, I mean, you're welcome to call back another week.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and we do prefer theist callers, so definitely glad you called.
Definitely thanks for calling. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sure.
Bye. Justin in New Jersey.
Hey guys, how you doing? I love your show. I'm a first-time caller. You might be interested to know that earlier today I did prophesize that I would be the second caller on your 900th episode.
Okay.
So you should.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Did God reveal that to you?
He did, yes. Yep. So definitely listen to me.
That's the real thing then.
That proves God is real.
Oh, I'm sorry. One of the things I wanted to bring up at the end of that call, sorry to interrupt, but here on talkorigins.org is a page called Patterson Misquoted, A Tale of Two Sites. It has the exact quote that the caller was talking about, and it has Patterson's follow-up explanation and a description of exactly what he was trying to say, because creationists like to quote mine a lot to make it seem as if prominent scientists are saying things that they didn't actually mean. Okay, go on.
Thanks. I want to, give my condolences for the French people. I think that European hate speech laws are just another way of intimidating free thinkers into, just towing the religious party line. I hope they stand up against that, and so do Americans. What I was calling about today is the topic of free will. And there's a famous person who had half their brain, cut in the middle, and the left half of the brain, I believe, was the atheist part, and the right half was the theist part. They were able to determine this somehow. So it seems
like an oversimplification to me.
It's an oversimplification, just for the point. It seems that even in individuals, there is a conflict going on. And that conflict, has to be resolved within the person. So it seems to be a very murky area with free will. And with areas of the brain, we know kind of like different modules of the brain control different parts. So if somebody has a stroke, say, and they lose their higher reasoning center, I would be curious how theists would explain that. Did that person just, lose their free will? Did the higher reasoning part of their brain and their soul go up to heaven a little earlier? So it's a question I'd like to answer.
Step one is to define free will, which I'm unable to do.
And
I pretty much have given up trying.
I think if you want to know how a theist would respond, you should ask one. Because, anything we say would just be speculation about what kind of knots they would twist themselves into.
They surely seem to value this free will, but I don't really know, honestly, what it is they're identifying or pointing at or what they're calling this. I don't get it.
Now, is the atheist community being very vocal about the European hate speech laws and the effect it's having on free speech here?
I mean, TAE has traditionally come out against, when we blog or talk about it, we're not in favor of restrictions on free speech. Like I said, as long as it's opinion and as long as it's not accompanied by, violent threat action.
Generally, I actually tend to think that it's more of a gray area than some other hosts on the show, because I think that there are clear boundaries to the First Amendment here in the United States where inciting people to violence, there's the classic shouting fire in a crowded theater thing, but there's also like making threats to people, which leads to, which is a direct line to violence. Right. And I don't think, even here in the United States, we do not consider freedom of speech to be absolute. There are limitations on it. And saying, I don't feel thoroughly steeped in what kind of European laws you're talking about to say categorically that they're all bad.
Correct. There was a recent UN, binding resolution that several theist countries, were pushing pretty hard.
I have heard, and stop me if I'm wrong, but I've heard there was a law that specifically prohibited some kind of mockery of people's religious beliefs or something.
Yeah, the blasphemy laws, I think, get served up with that. And to me, if there's not a threat of violence wrapped in that speech, or like Russell was saying, call to violence from other people, hey,
Right.
somebody ought to go and put a bullet through somebody's head. That's not protected.
Yeah, but do bear in mind that that this incident in Paris was not a case of the government censoring anyone. The government has been
Right.
very supportive after the fact of
Yeah, the people were supportive.
yes.
Very.
yeah.
But France has been pretty. France has been a little aggressive with some of their, I guess, attitudes and
I think
laws
France has
about
actually
religion.
cracked down harder on Muslims than most
lot of
countries, to the
places,
extent
yeah.
where they banned burqas, right?
Yeah, it had to do with like a head covering or face covering, and it was included, and there were some early quotes that made it seem like it was aimed at the Islamic community, but the laws in general are about face coverings in public generally, so it's sort of this weird thin line.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying in that case, it seems like this censorship in the opposite direction even.
There is a case right now in Saudi Arabia of a blogger, I believe, who is
I've heard about that.
1,000 lashes
Yeah.
for simply speaking out against Islam.
Yep.
And in Mecca, they would be homosexuals. And, I mean, this is, mainstream Islamic country, and I don't think people should be surprised when this type of violence comes to the Western world. It'd be similar like Bill Maher said the other day. If the Vatican was beheading people, what would we say? What would our reaction be?
Yeah.
And, the Islamic world has a free pass right now.
Well, I posted recently, because people were saying something, I guess, about Christianity being somehow immune to this, and they were, somebody had posted an OP that talked about, like the ancient kind of crusades and things, and I posted an article talking about Christian slaughter of Muslims in African nations, and how there was like tens of thousands of Muslims fleeing their homes because, and this is just from last year, right? So this was recent news.
Sure.
And so you do have Christians going out and like genocidally killing people and because of a different faith, and I know that this is more sectarian than just faith. I'm sure that if you get into it, there's probably also like racial issues going on as well, I wouldn't doubt.
Absolutely. The Yugoslavian war was very sectarian, with Christians against Muslims.
But the Christian violence is not a thing of the past. It may be, and even here in the U.S., it's kind of rare and sort of a one-off thing, but you still get that. There's a lot of angry speech that drives and fuels violent reaction from the Christian community. So, for example, when people start, getting into abortion debates and calling it murder, right? And I mean, when you're talking about murdering babies, there's going to be somebody who thinks he's a hero killing a doctor that will perform an abortion. So, I mean,
I'm glad you brought that up. I had a thought on listening to your show. In the future, if they develop a way where they could take a fetus out of a woman's womb who would not want to have
it. I think you're wandering off onto a brand new topic, and I think that I should not let you do that because we have other callers.
It's a really interesting idea, though.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But maybe call back with it next week, okay?
Okay, thanks a lot, guys. Love your show.
All right, thanks. So Steve in Brooklyn, another Steve, who is our second theist of the day. That's interesting.
Good.
Steve? Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
What's up?
Basically, I wanted to bring something up that would be kind of pretty interesting, and maybe you could apply in a way to the Paris, France, whatever's happening, or even some of the things that are happening even in this country. They did a survey in Norway and Sweden that there's a little bit more atheist populations, and that they say that there are more religious people in jail than there are atheists, and that there are more religious people that commit crimes and violence. And they're saying that if there were more atheist populations in the world, we would see less crime and violence and less people in jail.
I don't necessarily think that.
You have to be a little bit careful. The idea of people who are religious committing more crimes would be a different issue than are more people in jail religious. For example, here in the United States, you can score brownie points in your release and how well you're, when you get like when you go for parole, if you're like involved and active with your little religious group in the jailhouse or whatever in the prison, sometimes that counts towards you to kind of help you out. So
so if you declare that you've converted to a religion while in prison, you can get more likely to be let out early.
Yeah, so they may not; those stats may not be clearly trustworthy, and I don't know what the prison, like how they do the prison reviews in other countries, but I know that here that those kind of programs in the prison can count as like you doing some social good things.
Okay, but go on. What were you saying?
But would you guys say that like even over here in this country, in the U.S., that if there were maybe more atheists, you would see more or less crime and violence compared to what we see now?
I'm not willing to say that. I think a lot of atheists would jump to say that.
It would be like one less ideology that would drive violence.
Yeah.
But I don't know that something wouldn't raise a head to take its place. I don't know if the people that are violent and religious would find some other outlet for their violence. Or if, I don't know, like, does their religion make them violent, or are they violent people who found religion and now they have this excuse to be violent because they've got a cause that supports their tendencies?
I think it's possibly true, but I couldn't, the best you could do is survey countries that have fewer religious people and see if they have less violence. And I think in general they do, but then it's hard to take that as the final word on the matter because there are a lot of other differences between those countries. It's hard to do sociology because it's hard to have control groups.
Yes, you can only do observational studies, and they're hard to, like he says, they're hard to control, and so you just have to hope that you've taken into account any sort of like confounding factors.
Do you think, Tracie, I want to ask you a question. Do you think the crucifix and the Bible are worthless and meaningless?
Worthless and meaningless? Well, I don't think they're meaningless.
The Bible's useful as literature.
They have meaning clearly to lots and lots of people. I mean, even in art, you can provoke like horribly angry reaction by using a crucifix, which to me demonstrates that it does have a lot of meaning to people.
No, but I mean like from the atheist viewpoint. Would the crucifix and Bible be considered to atheists worthless and meaningless?
The Bible does not have particularly strong meaning to atheists. Like any other book, it can be read and mined for interesting, good quotes that you can make use of, but I don't feel that the Bible is better as a life reference than, let's say, Homer's Odyssey.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely got like a big foundation for Western literature and Western media, like art in general is based on it, like in a huge way. So, I mean, to me, the idea of understanding how those messages are interpreted by the society drives being able to understand references in the society around you that are tied to that particular, history and foundation.
No, because one time, Tracie, you mentioned once on the past show that you went like to the library of your college or whatever, and you said that the Bible is like crap, and I was just trying to see if maybe that could relate to that.
What I was trying to express was that I had been taught that the Bible was the Word of God, and that it had somehow been, put together by God or driven by God to be put together. And when I went to look it up, I found out that all of that was crap. Basically, what I'd been told by the church did not stand up to scrutiny. But as far as the literature, I think I've talked a lot about the influence of the Bible and Christian messages in media. I did like a 2 episodes on Batman Begins and how there were religious messages and themes in there, and they used like the Christ figure, and I would love to do another program on I, Robot with Will Smith, where they definitely are using like the Christ figure, the Adam figure. They have like, it's just pervasive religious.
Please, can you use the original Asimov novel?
I read the original Asimov novel, and I went for years not looking at the movie because I thought I would hate it. And it doesn't claim to be the novel; it claims to be influenced by it.
Sorry, taking you off topic.
I felt like that they did hit the primary message, though, of Asimov's original book, that the idea of autonomy. And when something can express its desires, like at what point do you have an obligation to I guess, consider that thing capable of invoking its own rights, which I think both movies really touched on that. Or both, I guess, stories. But anyway, the point is...
As far as the Bible goes.
There's, like, when you watch iRobot, there's a few scenes where they lead you towards something. And if you understand these particular religious themes in literature, you know they're not going to go there. Like, you know this person will... Like, you know that Will Smith will administer the nanites, not the robot. You know that... the person on the mountain delivering the speech is not the robot, it is Will Smith, before the robot reveals that. They kind of lead you down that little path, and they say, like, there's a woman that asks the robot, is that you? And the robot says, why do you ask? Is that a common dream? And then he turns to Will Smith and says, no, it's you. If you understand the Christ figure and the Adam figure and what's going on, you already know that can't be the robot on the mountaintop. And so, to me, it has a lot of meaning, and it's important to understand it if you're going to understand the society around you more fully. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the movie if you don't realize these things. It doesn't, somebody could really love it and wouldn't faze them.
Well, Tracie, I wanted to ask you quickly, do you think that atheists who want to desecrate, like, the crucifix and Bible or, like, maybe other religious symbols, you think in private, if they want to, you think they should or they should not?
In private, if they want to? I don't care what they do in private to any icon.
I think they should be allowed to do that.
They should be able to do it publicly. I mean,
yeah, sure.
I've been to art exhibits where things, were sacred. I mean, to me, the sacred and the profane, that is one of the most... I mean, art should be provocative and it should be thought-provoking. When you have something that takes a sacred symbol and desecrates that in some way, it's really interesting to me because sometimes what's done, really, it's a question of whether or not it's even desecrated. The people that are getting pissed off are assuming that it's been desecrated, but really it's just been put usually with some sort of mundane symbol or profane symbol. And when you put the two alongside each other, there's this contrast that just flips people out. And to me, that's some of the best art, when you have something that just, just evokes this huge reaction from the society. But when I walk through a picket line to go and see an art exhibit, I love that. That to me means that I'm going to see something that really shook people up, and that artist came up with something that impacted the society, and that was meaningful. It doesn't
necessarily make it good.
It doesn't make, it makes it good in that they came up with something that would be evocative, and not all art does that. A lot of art just looks good over your sofa. I mean, it's really sad, but.
Well, I mean, an anti-Semitic cartoon with a Jewish guy abducting a child is evocative. That doesn't necessarily being provoking and iconoclastic doesn't necessarily mean that the message is worthwhile.
Right, and I guess that would be derivative too, though. I mean, anybody can be derivative. I could do like a copy of somebody else's evocative art, and that's not really very creative of me. I mean, but when someone produces something that's not been done, they put that out, and it really, really evokes a reaction.
Right.
It's an interesting thing how people interpret it. They put their own meaning on it. There's no explanation under the artwork, that's telling people what it means. They come up with their own meaning, piss themselves off. It's really interesting.
No, but Tracie, there was a movie called The Lair of the White Worm, and I hope a lot of atheists see it. And there was a Hollywood actress that there's a scene in the movie there where there's a crucifix on the wall, and she spits at it and she laughs at it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you guys saw that movie, The Lair of the White Worm.
Yeah, but I've heard of it.
And basically they had a news article on her, and they said that she enjoyed it and she's happy and proud of it.
Okay, that's her interpretation. I mean,
if you're calling to ask us to condemn that, we're going to disappoint you.
Yeah, it's just symbols. These are symbols being used, and the symbols do have meaning, and when people use them in certain ways, they have different meanings to different people. I went and saw Monty Python's Life of Brian. I had to walk through a picket line for that the first time I saw it in the theater. And when I saw it, I was a Christian, and I was not offended at all by the film. And I felt like that the signs that I had to walk through completely misunderstood that message. I didn't feel like the movie was at all desecrating Christianity. I felt like it was actually kind of positive when it came to Jesus specifically. And and it was like all about it was mocking believers, not Jesus. And same with Last Temptation of the Christ. I just thought that movie was amazing. And there were a lot of people who were offended by that film, and I thought it was brilliant. And to me, there was nothing, I didn't think it was a negative, anti-Christian film at all. Like, when I watched it, the message that I got was, very, very just interesting. Loved, I think it was, what's his name, that played Paul, or, oh my gosh.
Goblin.
The guy that played Paul was so good. Well, no, not Jesus, but the guy that played Paul that's in all the Tarantino films.
Willem Dafoe, that's who I'm thinking.
Yeah, but the guy that did Paul was, I just thought, brilliant, especially at the end when he goes in and he's so fired up.
We're running out of time. Do you have a specific question, or do you just want to bring up these things which may or may not be offensive?
Wasn't Paul?
Well, no, I just quickly want to say, Tracie, that I saw atheists had videos on the internet where, they took the crucifix and the Bible. There's also videos out there, and they stepped on it, they spit on it, they pissed on it, and maybe even burned the Bible and the cross. And I just wanted to know what you guys think of some things like that.
Yeah, at least it's symbols and not people. It used to be that heretics like us were burned and spit on and
I don't
killed.
think it's particularly sophisticated criticism, if that's what you're asking.
Sure.
But I also think that people should have the right to do it.
No, because I want to let you guys know I became an atheist myself.
Oh, okay.
I used to be Catholic.
Oh, you used to be Catholic.
I've spoken to you a few times.
This note was wrong. Were you Catholic when you called before?
He was kind of on the fence. He was questioning.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, right. And I just, my father passed away. He was 92 back 2 months ago, and I became atheist. And basically, you think maybe this is a bad sign that, when I became an atheist, that maybe I'm getting some kind of punishment? You think?
No.
You think that's possible?
I'm sorry for your loss, but things just happen. I mean, 92-year-olds have been known to die. I don't want to be flippant about it, because I'm sure you loved your father very much. But no, I don't believe that it's a sign from the universe. Yeah.
Well, sure. I mean, it's not like your life is going to stop having events that occur just because you convert or deconvert. I mean, I could convert to a religion and have somebody die, and I mean, it doesn't mean that it's because I converted. Or I could go have pizza tomorrow night and get a call that my brother was in a horrible car accident and died, and I wouldn't think it was because I ordered a pizza, right? I mean.
No, I just want to let you guys know I'm happy to be an atheist because you have the freedom, you become a free thinker. And basically, you look at everything in society differently now.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, good.
And basically, the only thing is, when I went to a humanist group, because I'm also a humanist as well, they're telling atheists for some reason to go to Unitarian Universalist churches, and I just want to get your feedback on that.
Unitarian churches are generally mostly secular. Some of them might have kind of a vague belief in a sort of a New Age.
They're just super inclusive. And I think it's kind of probably what's going on is if you don't have a strong humanist group or presence that allows for a lot of social interaction with other people who are secular, the Unitarian Universalist churches often offer that. They give you all kinds of fun things that are social that you can go and participate in. And I think mostly the few interactions I've had, it's just been about just inclusiveness. They just kind of get together, and whether you believe, whether you don't believe, it really doesn't matter. We're going to go have a picnic, and the kids are going to go color, and they teach a lot of little, the kids, get these little be a good citizen kind of messages, and it's it's just sort of like a happy, inclusive place if you are looking for a social outlet.
Yeah.
Right, but basically, there's nothing to gain. It's almost like going to another church again. And
well, some people want the social, the social aspects.
You can go if you want, or don't go if you don't want. Nobody's going to think that you're a bad person.
I mean, let's say that you're a person who, for example, participated socially a lot in your church, and you did organize the choir, and you did a lot of the potlucks, and you were there. You went to the card night, and had a fun time. And if you're doing all these things with these people at your church, and then you become an atheist, sometimes you can't do those things anymore, and so you lose a lot of your social contacts and outlets. And so a lot of people are well, I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to become a hermit. I just don't believe in God anymore.
Right.
And so
you know what? One good thing about becoming an atheist coming from Catholic religion, which I was into for so many years because I'm 42 years old. Basically, it takes out the fear and the paranoia that you had.
Yeah, it certainly
Although,
can.
I mean, obviously, there's still some lingering stuff, like worrying about whether you're being punished.
Yeah, and some people don't get past the fear. They lose their belief in God, and they still have these weird irrational phobias about hell, and God's going to hurt them, and they don't understand why. A lot of people sometimes they feel almost guilty about it, and they'll write to us saying, what am I doing wrong that I'm still scared of this? And it's just like,
I mean, don't get me wrong. I feel betrayed and kind of disgusted of, the lies and the myths and the organized superstition that it was or is. And that's why even I was even thinking of, I don't know if I could say this on air, but if you take a crucifix and Bible, they say sometimes if you do something like that, you actually, if you do desecration, supposedly it's a catharsis for people who have something that it still has a control over you.
Maybe.
You think that?
I think
it depends on the person.
I think people who have been through psychologically trying events maybe put too much stock in the idea that there's going to be some kind of closure to it. Because that happens a lot in the movies, but real life doesn't work that way. I think the only way to eventually get over a lifetime of religious indoctrination is to just go on living your life and gradually move away from it. But having said that, if you want to do something horrible to a Bible, don't let us stop you. And we're out of time. They've got the credits up. We're out of time. I got to hang up on you. No, seriously.
No, I know.
Yeah.
No, I know.
Okay,
but
thank you for calling.
By doing it.
I mean it. We're out of time, and it's been a great show. Nice to have you here, Tracie.
Thank you. Yeah, nice to be here.
And we'll be on again next week. Bye. And we'll take a few calls after.
Yeah, after show.
After show.